In the last video, we completed our preparation and also explained the context for the activity. In this video, we will dive straight into the hands-on. We will divide the task into two broad sections. The first section would be to copy out a single row of data, and the second section would then be to paste them into your order sheet. So in your UiPath interface, create a new flowchart. Name it exercise 3.1L and create it to enable this. Switch to activities, pull in a new sequence and connect it to your start button. Double click into your sequence and name it to go to cell A2 and double click into it. Next, we will add 3 activities into this sequence. The first activity is send hotkey, followed by type into, and finally click. Let me show on Excel what we are trying to do. So the first step is we want to select Ctrl G. Ctrl G requires you to type something in so that you can go to a specific cell. The cell that we want to go to is sheet 1 exclamation mark A2. When you click OK, it will go to cell A2. Let's repeat so that I can show you again. See the cell is now on, the active cell is now F11. By pressing Ctrl G, it opens up the window and sheet 1 exclamation mark A2. You see that it directly goes to cell A2 in the tab sheet 1. So now we need to tell UiPath that we are going to reference that particular Excel sheet. Clicking on indicate on screen, we will go back to our Excel and go to the top left corner. When you see this shaded and non-shaded triangle, click on it so that it will come to this screen and wait for it to come back here. What we want to type is Ctrl and G. Type in G. Next, you want to go to your Excel sheet and type Ctrl G to make sure that this go-to panel or pop-up appears. Go back to your UiPath designer panel and click on indicate on screen for your type into activity. Once you do that, instead of selecting the Excel sheet on the top left corner, we want to make reference to this particular rectangle input box. Click on it. You'll be led back to your UiPath interface and select sheet 1 exclamation mark A2. Lastly, you want to indicate on screen that I want to click that OK button. Now you are done with the first portion, which is to go to cell A2. Let's test it out. Click on any other cell and select play. You see that it goes to cell A2. That shows that the current section of the script works. We want to create a new section for the next portion of the exercise. So go back out to your exercise 3_1 and now we want to include a new sequence. Link it to your original sequence and rename it form field. Double click and you get into the activities within form field. First thing we want to do is we want to copy. So copy selected text and wherever your cell is, your active cell is, which is currently A2, it will copy the contents of A2. What we want to do now is we want to store it in a space within UiPath. And there is this new concept that I'm going to introduce. It is called variables. Variables are nothing more than spaces where you can insert certain values that are stored inside the UiPath program. So now that you have copied out this milk bracket 1L close bracket, we need to store it somewhere and we need to create a variable for it. So for this part, we use the same name item. Variables have also different types. String refer to alphabets as well as anything that you type on the keyboard. There are other variable types such as integer or boolean, which we will go into at a later time. But in this case, since it is simply a string of letters as well as alphabets as well as numbers, we use the variable type string. And now when you click onto the copy selected text, change it, double click to change the name to copy item. Enter. And now we want to change the properties. We want the result of that copy to be stored within the variable item. So change your result here under properties. When you click on copy item under properties, type item. Once you have done that, what you want to do next is you want to move to the right. So what you can do is you send another hotkey to Excel and to get them to move to the right. So select the key and select right. Do not type it in because it will result in a different effect. It will result in a different effect. Now indicate on screen and indicate that Excel sheet. In other words, you have moved from the first column to move right to the second. We want to do the same for number as well as price. So let's take a look at how we do that. Again, we want to copy number. We create a variable. In this case, it's a number, but for simplicity, let's keep it as a string instead of changing the variable type to integer. Select on copy number, change the result to number, and move it to send another hotkey. For simplicity, you can just copy, Ctrl C, click on send hotkey grid, Ctrl C, and Ctrl V. Click on anywhere at the bottom and Ctrl V. It will create a new send hotkey grid. Do the same for the copy as well because we have one more to go. And now instead of number, it's price. So we change this to price and result also moves to price. So in this section, we have gone through what a variable is, and we have also started to use the send hotkey and copy to store certain values. Now you are ready to transcribe all of these values into your order form. Select a type into activity, and when it comes to the indicate on screen, indicate the Excel sheet and particularly the box where you want to insert the value into. So I didn't indicate it properly. Let me do that again. And first one, we want item. Do note that in this case, we did not include quotation marks. And when you don't include quotation marks, you are referring to the value that is stored inside variable. So next, we continue to add tab, which moves it to the next square, plus number, and finally another tab and price. And now you're ready to finally put in a click, and the click that you want is the submit button. So that brings us to the end of the very first activity for 3.1. Let's run the script. So as we can tell, it goes back to the Excel sheet, goes to cell A2, copies each of the values, puts them into the variables, and insert all of them before clicking on submit. That brings us to the end of exercise 3.1.